सिकंदर ने पोरस से की थी लड़ाई, जो की थी लड़ाई तो मैं क्या करूं। सिकंदर ने पोरस से की थी लड़ाई, जो की थी लड़ाई तो मैं क्या करूं।
I don't think most of you guys haven't heard this song, right? So most probably my previous generation grew up on this song, so naturally. So I will see what exactly does that mean to us today, right? Okay, let me start with something different. We are going to talk about something about a rear view mirror. We have all seen in our cars and all that, but we will see it something different. Okay, let me address the elephant in the room. I have a problem, okay? Numbers, I'm number blind. As people are color blind and all of that, I'm number blind. That's why whenever my wife asks, what is your bank balance? You know, I'm number blind. Okay, so same thing with history, right? So when we were studying history, half of them slept, but the other guys were working out on which year the Plassey War happened, or when was Akbar born and all of that. So everything was only numbers. As you can see that there were only numbers. And remember, I'm number blind. You must have realized how learned I was in history at that time, right? It was extremely difficult for us. I couldn't relate to most of the things that was happening. Most of you guys must be knowing this guy, right? Yeah. Okay, so he also says, never memorize something that you can look up. That's the only thing that is common between both of us, because he also was bad in history, apparently. So, but then I did not know, how do you use history in your life? Yeah, history repeats itself, they say, right? But it's so cliched. How do you use the history? I never knew, but I was very interested in reading everything. But till then, two things happened. I came across a couple of concepts like art of war, and then later on, a business of freedom. I'll tell you more about it. Suddenly, it hit me that what we have been told, or the way we have learned history, was always wrong. We were never taught the right part of it, right? We were never told about that. We were only given the dates. So in other words, they never told us how to look at the rear view mirror and drive forward. Looking back to go forward. They never taught us, right? So today we are going to actually look at few of the examples in our own history and see what did they tell us, so that you can from now on go back and see, and when you take a history book or read the history part of it, you look at it differently. Because remember one thing, today as we all know, that history is being changed by left, right, and the center. Okay, so now if you think about it, how do we learn the history part of it? We'll take it up. Quiz time. Do you know this king? Identify the king. Okay, I think you are not going to get it. I will give some hints, okay? This was the man of knowledge, a keen student of Persian poetry, a master of style, supremely eloquent in an age of rhetoric, a philosopher trained in logic and Greek metaphysics, with whom scholars fear to argue. This was not, I'm not making it up, this was written by one of the Moroccan explorer called as Ibn Battuta. You have heard the song, but you don't know who he is. But anyway, a mathematician and lover of science. Okay? He was so kind that when there was a famine, he distributed food free. Okay? He gave his army the pay in 1 year in advance. You know whom I'm talking about, right? Muhammad bin Tughlaq. What? Are you serious? Yes. What did we learn? He was the greatest fool, right from possibly the corner of Afghanistan to the remote village of Tamil Nadu. If you want to insult somebody's intelligence, we invoke Tughlaq, right? But we never learned what he was. All that we learned was that he shifted his capitals twice. We did not realize such an intelligent man, why did he even take those steps? Right? We all lost that entire part of the story. Okay? Now I told you something else. I told you that he paid his army in 1 year in advance, right? But do you know what is the fallout of that? Economically, socially, we never learned that. I'll tell you the other part of it. Because look at the context of that entire period, right? Genghis Khan had died almost 100 years back, so there was his legacy was dying out. So he wanted to expand his kingdom, right? So he got his armies and paid them in advance. Now the question was, okay, he has to go to war. But then he soon realized that he did not have enough silver and gold to actually mint more money to economy to run. One day he came and announced that these silver and gold coins are no longer valid and copper coins are going to be introduced. But copper and all these kinds of metal were very commonly available. So people started making fake currencies. Suddenly, nobody had any control. Exports and imports fell because none of the outside guys would like to accept this copper currency. Whoever actually said no to this, they were severely punished. Think about it. This king who has paid the army in advance and never went to a great war because of all of these problems coming in. And soon he realized that what kind of problem he's getting into. So he withdrew that. So when he withdrew it, there were all the copper coins people held was of no value. People came and threw it in front of the palace. There were huge amounts of copper, useless, worthless coins in front of his palace. If you think about, if this was available to us as a instruction or a learning for our politics and economics of today's thing, a lot of things would have been different, right? We were only given dates. We were never told about the moral of the story, right? Okay, let us go to the next part of the story. Bhagat Singh. What emotions does the name Bhagat Singh, comrade Bhagat Singh, bring in all of you? Inqilab Zindabad, right? He is the supreme martyr one can have. Amazing story. A fantastic person at the age, such a young age, went to gallows instead of asking for mercy. Think about it. But now, look at this at a totally dispassionate way. Let us step back and look at it. What is the moral of the story? What? This was history. Where does the moral of the story come in? No, I want something out of this story. Where is it? If you look at his last letter to his father or his book called as Why Am I an Atheist, he talks about a couple of very interesting parts. He says, do you think that I don't have the desire to live and have my own family and life everybody else would expect? He says that, right? Now, look at it. Then why does he offer himself to the gallows? Look at the time. There was a heavy censorship everywhere, but look at the kind of amount of coverage that Bhagat Singh's case was actually getting there. Even the English media in England was covering about Bhagat Singh. So they had this platform of court to actually send out the masses, messages to the masses there, millions of them. And suddenly, the whole country or huge amount of youth were looking up to them. And like in many other cases, there were many cases wherein apology or mercy letters were given and they were pardoned with, of course, conditions. But these people thought that if they actually give the mercy petition and opt for mercy and actually live, they thought that their return on their investment would be bad. Think about this as a business. How many of you guys know business continuity planning? A CEO and a CTO or the board members never travel together in a plane. Why? That is a part of the business continuity planning. Every company, large company with a data center, say for example in India, will also have a backup data center in Singapore. What if there is an earthquake or something like that here? I will have a business continuity planning. So what Bhagat Singh and his team did, if you look at it from a business perspective, it was business continuity planning. What he says is amazing. If you think about, look at our freedom struggle, and look at it as a business of freedom. They were in the business of freedom. So when you think about it, you will see different parts of life. If you relook at our history from that perspective, you will get a lot of strategies for business, politics, economics, sales and marketing. That reminds me, this is Dandi March. Gandhiji, in the famous salt satyagraha. What did he do? Just went there, picked up salt, came back. Why does it make so much of noise? Look at the time period again. The whole media was under censorship. Okay? There was no other medium of communication, no nubs there. How will you make things reach to so many people? In today's context, if you have to take, how did he make his satyagrahas viral? We never were forced to study history like that. We were never, do we have history in engineering? Of course no, we don't. Right? So that's the part that we were looking at. Let us go a little bit far away from here. The Vietnam War. A superpower already, a US, goes into this supporting war in Vietnam, a tiny, tiny country, and that too rebels in that country, you are fighting. And what happens in 60s and 70s? They lost a very, very bad war. They lost a lot of money, a lot of people, and of course there was so much of pressure even internally within their country that they had to ultimately withdraw. How did that happen? You're talking about a superpower, right? But if I tell you that the actual script for this war was written 2,500 years back, would you believe me? Right? So if you look at the entire war, the way the Vietnam War took place, which again ultimately ended up in US withdrawing it, was written by somebody called as Sun Tzu. Okay? A Chinese general who had studied history of war and had documented principles of how do you go and face a war. So there was this in US, US general, okay, William Westmoreland. He was a decorated World War II soldier. Okay, he had amazing template. Wherever Germans were, he would bomb first, whichever posts that he wanted to take, bomb them, airdrop the armies, they would take that post and move on. Simple template, highly successful. He comes into Vietnam, tries to do the same thing. Let us now connect what the Vietnam rebel general, General Giap, what did he do? How it was different? Let us see that. Let us look at Art of War quotes, some of them, and then relate to this Vietnam War. Okay? Know your enemy and know yourself. In 100 wars, you will never lose. Okay, let us come back to the whole point of war again. General Giap understood the way Americans fight. They knew the power, especially the bombing power, the air power, all of that. So he never fought with these guys directly at all. So there was no air force behind these guys at all. Okay? To win, to subdue the enemy is the most important part. So what happened is, General Westmoreland exactly used the same template. He took, bombed an area, and started airdropping the forces. But this was the same template. So what these rebels started doing is that wherever they bombed, these people would go towards it. Why? The template is the same, because now they are going to airdrop the army, right? So they know that where these enemies are. But US army doesn't know where these enemies are, right? So actually, the US army was pre-hinting that where I'm going to airdrop all the army, right? So these are the kinds of things that were taken. Avoid what is strong, attack what is weak. When these guys were dropped, they never went and started attacking them. They just followed them. They were so close to them, even the Air Force saw them, they wouldn't bomb because that would be friendly fire. Because they were very close to the American forces, right? So it is important to outthink your enemy than outfight him. So as soon as they approached a geography which was favorable, I'll show you what I meant by geography which is favorable, they would attack them. So, and they never went direct face-to-face war with them at all. But people were losing lives. These people, as soon as they would attack, they wouldn't kill everybody, they would leave few of them back. These people would ask for a backup. The backup would come, again the same template would be applied. So, in a way, American army, which did not know the geography well or the opponent well, were working like sitting ducks. So if you look at the geography that I'm talking about, there are miles and miles of tunnels like these, where people could survive for hundreds of days underneath in Vietnam. They are still there. Okay, why go that far? Let us come closer to our home. I'm going to demystify Mr. Amit Shah. If you look at it dispassionately, he's being called as the Chanakya of Poles and okay, all these parts of it. If you start studying him, the pattern in which he works, I will compare that. Okay? I will again tell some of the quotes and we'll link it. He will win who knows when to fight and when not to fight. For example, take Punjab election. They never came forward. They never were front. So if you ask who lost, it's Akalis who lost. BJP did not lose. So when not to fight, he knows. He will win who knows how to handle both superior and inferior forces. You know how well he can get the things agreed upon RSS as well as his followers. He will win whose army is animated by the same spirit throughout its rank. He will win who prepared himself and waits to take enemy unprepared. You know what happened in Goa election, if you remember. The opponent slept. If you look at the way, the entire thing, he will win who has military capacity and is not interfered with by the sovereign. So complete trust by the leader, supreme leader, onto him. The general has all the armies under him, no questions asked. These are hundreds and hundreds of examples that are there. For example, you know what happened between Hitler and Napoleon. Just 100 years apart. Both of them exactly same way lost in Russia. If you had learnt history, the story would have been different. When you look at the rear view mirror, you know that disclaimer was always there, that the objects in the mirror are closer than they appear. Thank you.